Thank you everyone for coming this morning, and sorry if my voice is going out. I think all three of us are actually a little under the weather. So I just wanted to say, first of all, this has been such an honor and just a wonderful experience being able to host this every month. I can't believe that we're number 12 in, and it's a real pleasure to have Rachel and Ben, the owners of CREMA Coffee, here today. And I was telling Rachel beforehand, their brand aligns a lot with all of the stuff that I believe in. The great love for hospitality. I think the staying focused and really in their lane, having one store with one outpost, not trying to do too much or everything all at once, and also the relationships they've developed with the farmers they work with and with their customers and with their employees. So I just wanted to kick off the conversation by asking you guys just a simple question. For me, someone who's worked in the service industry for 12 years, serving, bartending, hosting, why the great love for hospitality?
Oh boy.
First, wow, this is very hot mic. Good morning to everyone. I think we need to warm up a little bit. I'm still not awake, but I think that's a good question. It's who we are. It's staying true to that. I mean, from the beginning, it's been all about customers and all about the people that we hire. I think our love for hospitality is born here with Rachel. She's been in it for 15, well, longer than that now. But she's the secret sauce behind our love for hospitality.
I think for me, that just came from the home I grew up in. My mom was very hospitable. We always were the household that had people over, and just making people feel really comfortable and just part of a place and a community has just been really important to me all along, which is part of the reason why I fell in love with the coffee business in general when I was in college, was because I just loved the community aspect of meeting people and finding out where people worked, and all these people kind of collide in this one place pretty much on a daily basis. A lot of our customer base is that way, and so it's a great way to introduce people to other people, and it makes people feel like they have a second home. So yeah.
And I know you two, it was funny because I was kind of scanning your website this morning, and I knew that Rachel came from a small town in Illinois. You're both Illinois natives, but you both come from sort of small kind of farming communities, right? So did growing up in that environment influence the way that you run your business at all?
I mean, I would say definitely. I saw my dad has been a mechanic his whole life for John Deere. Seeing parents, I've had my father taught me a lot about working hard and staying, my dad is just really good at this one thing. And so seeing him be in the same job my entire life, and growing up in a small town, I didn't see myself as having lots of opportunities. I kind of thought when I was a kid I'd be a teacher, and then I went to college, and then of course moved to Denver. I moved to a city. It was the first time, I grew up around Chicago, so I was able to go into the city as a kid many times, but I think that kind of having sort of that simplistic lifestyle has helped me stay focused while being in the city, because it is easy to get very distracted. So
yeah, we grew up in essentially the same town. Back to the hospitality question a little bit. I worked at a restaurant for 5 years when I was, and the same with her, from the time I was 14 to 19. And I think that, growing up in a small town, it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to work in the fields, you're going to work at a restaurant, you're going to do both of it,
It's not like today's world where I feel like we have everything at our fingertips, right?
Yeah.
No, there is no social media. That was social media, right? So I think our love for hospitality was born in those small. That's just how we're just mid-America. It's where it was from.
So let's talk about when you guys first got into coffee, because I know you are kind of a veteran in that world, and you had gone to school in Denver, right? Which is where you had kind of gotten into it. I know we had talked briefly the first time we met about how that was when you sort of got, I guess, your entree into the world of like barista competitions and realizing there was this whole sort of sophisticated world around coffee. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I worked at a coffee shop in high school in my hometown, and then and loved it. And then when I went to college in Denver, I started working for a small roasting company that had been in business since the 70s, and it was a small-run business. It was a husband-wife, and they were just super sweet and like gave opportunity to people, and they trained us. And I mean, back then coffee was different. I mean, in 2000, so. It was the first place where I felt like I was part of something and I was taken care of. And I've always worked for small businesses. I've never actually worked at any corporate businesses over the years. And so it was there that I felt like I was part of something, and I realized like there was so much more to learn about coffee specifically that I didn't know about. That's when I realized I actually love the hospitality industry and like actually want to participate in that long term, which of course disappointed my parents, because it's like, why would you choose to be in this industry of all the things you could do?
That's interesting, and that's something that I've kind of explored over the last year, because I interview a lot of people in the service industry, from chefs to, I actually interviewed one of the general managers I worked for this year, and that's always like the number one thing that we talk about is how people, including my own family, they sort of have this like, really, like you're choosing to do that? Like, well, hey, this is like a really great source of income, So it's interesting that you sort of experienced that reaction as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was the first college graduate in my family, so it was like for my parents to see, because all my family was in farming, so it was like for me to be the first person to get a college degree and then decide to go into an industry where I didn't necessarily need a degree for it. I think was probably somewhat disappointing to them, but I mean, and at that time I had not thought of myself as an entrepreneur or a business owner, but then I had moved here and was a general manager for a shop in town for almost 5 years, and that's where I realized like, I think I could do this whole business owning thing. I was practically doing it for someone else and grew his business for him. And then
let's talk a little about that, because I'm always curious about what people have done prior to their career, and how all these little small like kind of part-time jobs that maybe like when we're doing them we're like, this sucks, or this, I don't want to be doing this or whatever, but we're kind of fine-tuning our skill sets, right? So how did the jobs that you had before owning CREMA influence the way you run your business now?
Oh man, we're kind of all over the place. I mean, we have a very varied backgrounds. Again, growing up small town, we did a lot of odd jobs, everything from working on the farm to working in the restaurant. Personally, I went to school for aviation, ended up with a business marketing degree. I've always been kind of an adventure seeker, risk taker, and so that's kind of what makes us a perfect pair. Is that when she was doing more in coffee and hospitality, and it came to a point where she was like, I think I want to do my own thing. I was like, yes, like let's jump off that cliff, like let's do it. My previous roles were marketing. And everything from stocking shelves at grocery stores to doing dishes at restaurants to running a marketing team.
What about you, Rachel? I mean, I know that you were running, and it was Sam and Zoe, right? Which is what you were the general manager there for 5 years. So from that experience, what did you learn that you wanted to do, and then more importantly, what not to do? Because I always make the joke that, I've spent the last 12 years being like, you know what, I actually don't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, my boss was Doug Havren, who owns Gabby's Burgers and Fries now, and I love Doug. He taught me a lot. But at the time in his life, he had other things going on, so he was sort of hands-off. And I was pretty young, running this show by myself with the staff. We had like a drive-through, we had this food menu, and it was just crazy, and I had literally no budget. So it was like, I wanted to improve coffee quality there. He came from a food background and wasn't super on board with some of those ideas, but I just did it on my own time and my own volition with I mean, of course, with his support, but without having a lot of resources. But I think the thing I learned there the most was I learned a lot about how to hire and what people to hire and not hire. So I learned a lot there just by having to interview and hire for 5 years. I learned a lot about just like scheduling and management and how to just balance those things with, cost of goods and percentage of labor and, basically make someone's business work for them. And so there was a lot of positive things and some negative, but mostly not negative from the owner, just more like me being young and inexperienced trying to figure things out. But I think the thing that I've always learned is I stick with things. Like I was there for 5 years after many times wanting to leave, but my dad, like this whole work ethic thing was like, you don't move around, like you stick with the job, like you work it out, you just make it work however you need to. And so I think sort of that mentality of like, I can weather the storms and figure this out, that really has helped me when it came to open CREMA. So, yeah.
So it was interesting. I was reading through my original interview with Rachel this morning when I told her that. She sort of cringed and went, oh gosh. But she said something that I thought was really cool. And she said, and it was in relation to them deciding that they did not want to take on investors when you guys opened, right? I remember you said you completely bootstrapped the whole thing. You said if we were going to fail, we were going to fail fast. So I'm curious, it's funny because like from my perspective, I live across the street from you guys, and and I've sort of seen the evolution, and I'm sure people look at you and think that you're just dragging in money bags. But let's talk about the first couple of years, what it was like, and I'm even curious how long it took you to turn a profit over there.
I still have this vision. I mention this a lot to people when we're talking about coffee shops and people who want to open coffee shops. It was a whole lot of hard work. I have this memory. It was probably not much after a few weeks after, a month or so after we were open. And how it would work is, I was working a corporate job, and she was full time, making this thing work. And that was our plan. Like I would support us, and all the money that we made, if we made any, would go back into paying employees first, and then our vendors and whatever. So every day after work, we would come down here and we would build the shop, 80 hours a week. Then we got it open, and it was kind of the same thing. I mean, I would work, and then at lunchtime I'd run down here and check in and help out and do whatever, then go back to work. But when I come down at lunchtime, there'd be nobody in the shop. I'm like, oh, this is bad. What have we done? But so the memory I have is. At first month, her at lunchtime there'd be nobody in there, so it's her just sitting there at the counter because we had these bars. Well, we have them again.
Would you read books, or would you
I literally,
just looking out the window, like people come in.
Well, this is before social media or anything. We opened in 2008, so that was almost 9 years ago.
And what was the neighborhood like? Because it's funny. I've lived across the street from here for little over 3 years, and I remember when I moved in here. There was no Pinewood Social. The EC was here. It was like
there was a big dump right here, like a big. No, I'm serious. A big gravel dump here at the corner. This whole area was like that for about the first 4 years we were over there. So this whole thing was like barbed wired up, and it was right when the stock market crashed is when we opened. So it was. Everything over here came to a screeching halt. Things sort of started, and then the developers ran out of money, and then the city decided to use it as their construction site storage area for 3 or 4 years. So it was pretty bleak.
Yeah, most people when you told them where we were at, oh, I'm not going, kind of thing. So
they were like, oh, that's weird. I was like, yeah, I know.
But the rent is really cheap. You don't understand.
So the turning point, I'm always curious, that's hilarious. I'm imagining Rachel sitting at the counter doing doodles or whatever on a notepad waiting for people to come in. But I always ask my subjects, and the title of my brand is Word of Mouth for a reason. Every interview that I've pretty much done in the last couple of years, which has been hundreds, everyone said, no advertising, no marketing. I completely built my brand through one person telling another.
Mm-hmm.
And so when did sort of the tables start to turn? When were there customers?
I think from the get-go we had customers. From day one, we were able to meet our expenses. We didn't break even for a longer time, but daily and weekly from the beginning, we were able to turn a profit. That was very small, but able to at least pay our costs for that day. But I think that happened because of word of mouth. So because everyone saw us, our friends and family saw us doing this thing, they're like, oh, I'll come down and help paint that wall. You guys are almost ready to launch. And at that time, there wasn't anything else quite like it that I know of happening. And so everyone was it was kind of everybody was amped up about it because they're like, oh, we're getting a specialty coffee shop, and there was so a little bit of family and friends created that buzz that branched out.
Yeah. And this was prior to kind of what Nashville has seen in the last 3 to 5 years in the restaurant and food industry. So back then it was like when something opened, it was like a big deal, and it was in the Tennessean, and well, that's how everyone found out about everything back then.
I remember the Bites blog. I think they didn't have anything else to really much to talk about, so they were really excited.
Yeah. You were pumped about the avocado toast, right?
We didn't even have that back then. No,
Oh,
that's only 2 years old. So.
Oh, I didn't know that. My mistake.
I'm just kidding.
I got my facts wrong.
No, you're good.
So I'm curious about sort of the educational process. I was joking about this when I, first moved here. I said, I'm from Chicago initially, and I think that you had said this, Rachel, that we were the first coffee house in town to put a 12-ounce bag on the shelves for $17. And I think in Chicago, I had seen that for years.
Yeah.
In New York, a decade. But here, people, what's going on?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the educational process, how you would handle someone being like, what the heck?
Yeah. It was hard. Specialty coffee is pretty far behind in the Southeast region in general. We're starting to become a little bit more on par with, I would say we have definitely specialty shops that can compete with anything you would see on the West Coast, like California, New York, Washington State. But in general, our region is kind of slightly, it's a lot smaller, and it's definitely farther behind. But there are those of us around here that have been doing coffee for a while and are part of kind of the big picture of education. And so it was hard. It was hard to be the first person to put coffee on the shelf at different price points. Sounds silly, but specialty coffee is only 10% of coffee that is bought and sold worldwide. So we are a very small market to start with, but then to try to help educate people subtly and position that we are different than a commodity grade coffee was...
Sorry.
Don't blow out anyone's eardrums, Ben.
I'm sorry.
So to talk about coffee and help people understand that just like in wine or other beverages, that there is actually a grading system and there is a quality base that demands prices that are higher and are different price points, it was very difficult. I got a lot of flack for that at the beginning. And to be honest, as more shops have opened in town and other people have maybe started roasting their own coffee since and putting coffees out at different price points, it validated what we were doing because that was really difficult at the beginning.
And I would say, just add on to that real quick, we knew from the get-go intrinsically that education would have to be one of our key strategies. So it's been in our DNA since day one to have. We used to do small cuppings and little coffee classes, and that's continued, as you probably know, till today, just because it's been so important to answer those questions that people have about why does this cost more?
Yeah. Well, and I thought it was interesting because, I was talking to someone recently about competition. Everyone's always very kind of fierce about, carving out their territory or their niche. But you two were actually the only people in 3 years I've ever heard say this. I thought it was great. You said, we didn't want to be competitive. We wanted to stake a claim on our area, but the other shops opening up actually helped us. So I'm curious about, the barista parlors or all the other coffee shops that have opened up in town, how that sort of validated, I guess, what you guys were doing in a way. Would you say that was true?
Yeah, I think it's validated it. I think all the other shops that have opened have helped to validate it because now you have other shops that are charging the same thing and doing things that are completely different, but different for the market and different from what we're doing. And it's stretching people's imaginations about what they expect out of coffee and the experience. I'm not sure how to answer your competitive question quite yet. I need a second to think about it.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so I'm curious, it was funny, I did an interview a couple of weeks ago, and it was with the Littles, who I'm sure, I know Miranda knows them in the audience, a couple other people. They own Josephine on 12 South, and they talked a lot about openly being a married couple running a restaurant, and sort of the ups and downs and all arounds, and they said, gosh, I wish this was something more people talked about, So I guess first and foremost, I'm curious what your partnership is like, how you two sort of divided up the roles, who was going to do what, just interested in that dynamic.
I think it's been very organic. I think a strong business comes from a strong marriage. That doesn't mean that it's easy. She'll tell you. Sorry. We woke up to a sick daughter this morning, and I've got the same thing she has. I'm sorry.
How the roles have kind of grown is really, I was the person that was like, I want to do coffee. And so I do a lot of I'm the quality control director at CREMA. I go buy coffee. I'm a quality grader for coffee. I'm the coffee person, and I'm like also the kind of the leadership role to the staff when it comes to making decisions about the cafe or our web, like Ben helps a lot with the website, so like the marketing and web, that's more his direction. Wholesale accounts, we kind of have our parts in how we handle wholesale. He's more the inbound, like I'm gonna help and find if this is the right person to work with, and then I'm more the executor. I go out and I'm like, all right, let's like make this happen. Let's get this coffee program in place. So we've sort of divided up how we, in each kind of department, what my part is, what his part is.
That's right, and it's evolved. It wasn't like from day one we're like, okay, you're gonna do this and do that. It was more like, hey, you can do that. Like, you're really good at marketing. Can you put a picture out? And I was like, I didn't have to do anything. She's already doing all. She's so passionate about the coffee thing. I bring more of the big picture thinking. Like, I see she's exceptionally good at what she does, running a small business, and doing coffee like no one else has done it. And I look at that and I think, oh yeah, we can round off this corner here and we can tweak that, and what if we pursue this strategy, and what about these competitors over here, and what's happening in the industry. So it's evolved to a place where I think we're very comfortable in our roles because we know each other's strengths and weaknesses well. And that's how it's divided up. So I'm our CEO and she's our president. So anything kind of operations related, that is in her wheelhouse, and she does that better than anyone else. And I'm always the antagonist, thinking, hey, they painted their building purple. Should we be painting our building purple? The crazy ideas, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I'm curious, what is it like? The only thing, I'm not married, so I have no idea what it's like to work with a partner. But I can say I've worked with friends, and it's interesting, sort of flip-flopping back and forth. Okay, we're friends and we're drinking beers, we're hanging out, and then wait a second, you can't do that. So. For you, CEO and president, husband, wife, what is it like sort of flip-flopping back and forth between those roles? And any advice you would have for other married couples that do in fact own businesses together?
I think we were talking about this last night when we were looking at the questions. We found it to be successful to set time aside not to do business stuff. So last year we were able to take the longest vacation we've ever taken, which is really helpful. And even in our daily lives, like it's, dinner time, we'll talk about that kind of later. So just having very clear boundaries, and it's not always that easy. It's hard when you're running a business together and you live together, because at the end of the day, you can't, hey, I'll see you tomorrow. You really pissed me off, That's the great thing about working in an office, right? Is like at the end of the day, you go your different ways and have time to think about it. But coming home, it's like, hey.
It's you again.
So I think,
Yeah.
it's just been a lot. It takes, I would say, patience and have conversations and have boundaries.
And listening to each other's ideas and knowing that it's okay to disagree, but like think about it and like almost sort of not take the business side of what we talk about personally. Like it's just hard, but it's kind of like, okay, yeah, that's that, and we can disagree about it right now and we can talk about it later, but also to not get so enraptured in it where it becomes like a personal thing where it's like, oh, this really bothers me and he said this, and we have to talk about but the good side is like we can make decisions faster. So like if something needs to happen, it's like we can be there together and we can make the decision. There's not like people we have to run it by, or it's us. So it's like that's awesome to be like, okay, like we can just make that call.
That's definitely been a competitive advantage, is the ability to act quickly on things and to have that. As much as we, try to not talk about it, the ability to have that conversation continuously. I mean, if there's something important, you can talk about it when you wake up, right away. It's like, and we're both in this. It's not like you got to wait to get to the office to talk about it, or send an email on your BlackBerry on your way to work if you still have one of those. It's like it's pretty great to be able to like, we solved that in 15 minutes, done. Let's keep going, And that and other people can't do that.
Yeah.
And I would just also add, I don't think business ownership for married couples is for everybody. I think it works for us and others, but I know others that it would not work for or hasn't worked for. It's hard. It's very hard.
Yeah. And we don't necessarily like work alongside of each other all day.
Yeah.
Like everyone thinks that our roaster Winston is my husband, like every day. They're like, oh, is that? I'm like, no, that's our roaster Winston. Like, and so, we're not, it's just, no, it happened again, like on Friday. It was so funny.
Just to be clear, they've also thought he's my brother and my lover, so.
Yeah, it's just been very.
None of that is true.
Yeah. But like then we don't necessarily.
Like people have said that. It's not true, but they've said it.
Yeah. He's a very big part of our business, but people kind of assume like, oh, you guys just must like work alongside each other all day together. I'm like, no. Like, I'm in kind of the operational world of CREMA, and Ben is like more in the, he's the guy fixing the chairs at night and like running the website and getting the, next marketing thing queued up. Those are so we're not always like in the same physical space together like people think or assume we would be. So. Yeah,
and I would just reiterate that that's probably the key is we don't spend all day together. They're just she loves cupping coffee and doing all those things. But I am like 100 different directions. I enjoy a lot of different things. So that's been very key for us is having different areas to focus on. One last thing on it I just thought of too is coffee is her foremost passion, but I also love coffee. I love the community. I love the benefits to the people we purchase from and our employees and the community. So having a thing that you both are passionate about is what makes it work.
This is why I chose them as my last guest, because I knew if my voice went out, they could talk amongst each other. So thank you, I'm joking. So I know the last time that we had coffee, of course, although we should have cocktails sometime. I feel like we could talk longer. But you talked endlessly about your employees. And as someone like myself, who I would consider myself a veteran of the service industry in 12 years, I've worked through some employees who didn't give a shit about their staff, honestly. And I know you guys give a lot more than that. So what are some of the advantages that CREMA employees have over other coffee shops?
I think part of the advantage is the fact that I have been where they are for so long, so I can totally understand their frustration when it comes to, issues on the floor with each other or with guests or, oh, it's so busy. How do I handle, maintaining my cool when I feel like there's no end in sight? I understand those things and I still work with them on the floor. And so I think that's something that has been, it sounds silly, but it really does mean a lot, I think, to be part of the team and not just be, like I am part of the team. I think the other thing, in addition to, we can talk about benefits and stuff, but I think the other thing is just a general interest in their life and who they are as people. You know, we see them as individuals. They all individually have talents to offer at CREMA. Some of them are writers, some of them are photographers, some of them are really passionate. We have a girl that's like a natural chef. We have, we have all these different talents. You know, people come and work in coffee for many different reasons. Some of them it's to get to the next step. A lot of them it's to get to the next step in life. Almost all of our staff has college degrees, and they're just trying to figure out what their next move is. And our goal is to help them get there. You know, I understand most people that work for us are never going to continue in coffee. There's not a lot of ways to move up in the industry. And so for us, it's kind of seeing those talents, giving voice to those talents, and then helping them achieve what their next goal in life is. And so my goal is when they leave CREMA that they remember it being a great experience, but also us being fully supportive of them in their next step. And I think that that is something that is not common in the hospitality industry. It's pretty much like when you quit, it's a bad thing. Like, oh, I'm going to start cutting your hours and your shifts, and I'm going to and it's just, instead of caring for people as though, this is their livelihood, this is their life. And so,
and I know you're known for like implementing your staff's talents into what you're doing. Like I know you and I talked about there was a really great writer who worked for you who started letting blog, right? Or I mean, you've had photographers do work for you. So yeah.
It's culture above anything else. That's something that just keeps coming back to me this year. The older we get, we're in our 9th year, right? It's culture above all else. Everyone has had a shitty job, right? I've had so many shitty jobs. I don't want, it's our company. We can make it whatever we want it to be, and we're going to be a fun place where people love to work, and where when they leave, they'll be better off, better people, their families will be better. That's what it's all about for us. Just culture above all else. We had our annual holiday party 2 nights ago, which is some of this residual here. But I just was once again impressed with if you give people the opportunities to be themselves and give them opportunities to better themselves, to be happy, there's no better competitive advantage than that. I mean, we had the best party. It was so fun. And we all felt like, I'm just still buzzing on it. It was just such a good time. Yeah. And that's what we're all about.
Yeah. And I think how you actually implement that is paying them well, giving them vacation time, understanding that they have a life outside of, your business. Just being generosity to me has never bit me in the ass in a bad way. So it's always been positive. So being generous with them, also caring about their health and well-being, because that's something that in the food and beverage industry is like very much, it's like servers are out there gloating about like, I worked a double and I made all these, I worked 16 hours, and there's sort of this, it's just like a bad and toxic thing, and I really try my best to almost take the opposite approach with our team to take care of their health. We have we give gym stipend memberships. We do cooking classes like on healthful eating. We've done we have
CSA.
We have a guy that makes really great sourdough bread. We have like a little bread CSA. They get a couple of massages a year. They get a stipend for that. I mean, there's things that we.
Can I have a job?
They seem
it makes business sense too. I mean, we do more, we like to think that, and we take pride in we do more for our employees than anyone else. Yeah. It's partly because of everything we just talked about, but it's also because we want to be the place where great people, both in character and in skill, choose to work.
Mm-hmm. And so our employee retention is really high, comparatively. So we have, it seems like the average, this year we're taking 3 baristas. We go to, after 3 years, we'll take baristas to Origin and go meet our producers. So we're going to Costa Rica with 3 of our baristas this year, and they've all been there, it'll be almost 3.5 years by the time they go. But it seems like our employee retention is about 3 to 4 years, which is pretty rare, I would say, in coffee.
Really high in the service industry, which is so transient. I mean, I
Yeah.
can tell you that I've been a self-proclaimed job hopping whore in the past, so I mean, it's like amazing.
But
But every time you job hop, I mean, it costs those employers so much money.
right.
Yeah.
I come
Yeah.
from healthcare industry and disease management, wellness benefits, and so that's why we implemented a lot of these well-being initiatives. Is not only because it's the right thing to do, but also because it makes business sense. I mean, we reap it in both not having to retrain people and train new people, but also in keeping consistency. Our brand. You know, people are like, oh yeah, that guy's been there for 8 years. You know, Mark's been there for 8 years. I love coming there. You know, it's like it's a brand. It's a belief system, and that's what we're promoting.
So I'm curious, you know, Rachel said something really interesting to me, and I didn't know this, but you said a lot of, if not the majority of your clientele is tourists, right? Because of all the hotels that have been popping up.
I will say that in the last year and a half, yes,
Okay.
but not prior to that.
So I've been to CREMA where there is a line out the door, and I thought, woo, you know, go them, that's awesome. But again, money back, so I'm joking. but I was thinking, okay, I would love to know, like, in your mind, what is like the ultimate CREMA experience, and in order to serve the masses, do you ever have to compromise that? I mean, I know I've worked at, you know, restaurants where it's like, man, you know, do we have great cocktails and wine and food, but it's like, I don't have time to explain everything on the menu, dude, you know?
I speak about it more philosophically. She'll make sense of it. For me, the ultimate CREMA experience is you come in and all the common things are done uncommonly well, and you leave with such a sense of wow that you're inspired to be a better whatever you are, painter or whatever. But that's what we aim to do, is that every customer comes in, they're wowed. They're like, oh, whoa, like I've never had a drink that good, or wow, I've never met a barista that was so friendly, or wow, they came and took my plate. You know, just all those small things that don't happen, doing them well, that's what we're all about.
I mean, it's been very challenging because I feel like what he's saying is the ultimate experience, and then the reality has been that, you know, we've been able to grow slowly and organically for such a long time, which has been awesome. So people like think like, oh, you guys are slammed out the door all the time. It's like, well, not always, and it's built up over time. But the new challenge has been the fact that when we did choose this location, the convention center was not part of, I mean, this was supposed to be an art district, you know, this whole area, like, it looks very different than the neighborhood that we thought we were entering 9 years ago. So it's been interesting with the change of attitude after we started to have more tourism. You know, like, okay, we're gonna build hotels, and we're gonna put this convention center in, and we're just gonna bring people in and just spend money. And so that has been interesting because, you know, we built up this whole clientele base of locals over time, and then now we have tourists that are coming in, which of course we want to welcome them in, and we want them to have a great experience, but we'll have them by the droves. You know, we're not the kind of restaurant where we can put you on a wait. Like, we have to take everyone. Everyone has to be able to just come in and stand in the line. But it's been tricky because it is more exhausting on the staff. It does drive off the regulars, so it's definitely changed our local base in a way that I didn't anticipate happening, because, you know, you have these people that are like, I've been coming in for years, and now I have to wait 10 minutes in a line every time when I come in. And then the new issue that we faced even this year that's been so strange is that now tourism is slow, and now we're slow again. I mean, like, we're starting to see this weird shift in how do we just have to, like, remind our staff, like, we stay true to who we are and we do our thing. And so it's been kind of weird the last like 4 to 6 weeks, because all of a sudden when the tourists aren't here, like, it feels very different. So it's been very tricky.
I think we could have a whole conversation about the city and its tourism strategy. I think in general it feels a bit contrived, and we'll see if that helps long-term, you know, small businesses. I have my own opinions about it. We have had to bend our strategies a little bit to help serve those people, but but I think we've reached a place where, and we've never at any point been like, we're gonna totally change what we do to facilitate this. We've always been able to say and stay true to, you know, quality is number one above anything else. But what can we do to enhance the process? You know, how can we get the line through a little bit faster, but still keep our quality? But we've reached a place where we've done, I think, optimized everything that we almost possibly can. And we, you know, now it's like, I'm sorry, we're not gonna degrade quality to get people through faster.
Well, and you also said something really interesting, and again, I when we had coffee a couple weeks ago, you two were saying stuff that I never really thought about in terms of the service industry. You said, you know, it's kind of the weird dark underbelly of getting a lot of press, which is, you know, press tends to focus on specific things. Like, you guys have become known for avocado toast, and you said, you know, which is great, and that's what people love there. But I mean, it's also like you said, you know,
our focus is coffee. Like,
right. Why are we all of a sudden known for like a fruit?
Yeah. Like, my staff is like, why do we have a toast station now that's just out of control? Like, why is that a thing? I'm like, I literally don't know what to say. Like,
that's one of those things that you never, there's things you can't anticipate, and that, for me, that's what's kind of fun about it, you know, is like, we think we're gonna do this thing, and then the market, you know, like, you can't really choose who comes in the door. I mean, you gotta serve who comes in.
Right.
And it's just kind of funny to see how patterns in the market occur and then drive different segments of business. It's like, wow, never expected that. And then how do you reply to that? Like, maybe we should just be an avocado shop, or do we stay true to who we are? I don't know what the margins are on it. So
I know all the vegans in my building would love that. So I just have one last question, Grace, because it's something that I've always found to be very, very attractive about both your personalities. But you know, I feel like, for me, for example, you know, I tell people I do interviews, and they're like, well, do you want to do this? No. Do you want to do that? No. And so I've gotten really good at saying no over the last couple of years. I know you told me that was your favorite word one time. So I don't blame you, sister.
Hey.
It was fun. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
She's
Sorry.
totally-
I'm like just zoning out, thinking about it.
But I was thinking, how do you know what are the right opportunities, and how do you say no to the wrong ones? Because I'm sure you're constantly getting swayed in different directions.
I mean, for me, I just listen to my gut. You know, if it just doesn't feel right, I know that I'm not going to really put my heart into it and do it the way, you know, I should. So, I mean, that sounds like really easy to say, but yeah, I mean, there is, it's really hard when it's just a constant, like, you should do this, you should do this, you should put a location here, have you ever thought about, you know, it's just like constant, you know, especially when people see the busyness, they're like, I live in Green Hills, like, you need to put a thing, and, you know, and it's so hard because, you know, I want to listen to those people because I understand that there is a need that needs to be met maybe in Green Hills or wherever that is. The hard thing is to explain how long it takes to build a business, and part of me doesn't know that I'm ready to go back to the beginning again. And also, we have a daughter, and so trying to, you know, the first 6 to 7 years of our lives that we had CREMA, you know, we really did work round the clock. And then when, you know, when I had her, it was like 3.5 years into the business, it really changed how I could work. It had to. So saying no is, yeah, I mean, I know that I've had many people think that I'm foolish for saying no, like, this is such an amazing opportunity, or, you know, people just think that I'm not really, maybe I'm not smart, or I'm not paying attention, or I don't have good business sense. But the truth is that for me, and I think I'm speaking for both of us, but for me, like, owning a business is about just making a living, and we're fine. Like, we're comfortable. We have all that we need. Like, I mean, if growth eventually is more part of the plan, it has to be the right time and the right people in the right place. But,
this is why I answer all our emails. I'd be like, no. So it's, I like to think it's yes if, and then it's, you know, but the ifs are like things that are staying true to ourselves. I mean, it's that simple. It's just staying true to what we really want to do. And it hasn't been that easy always, because when you first open, it's like you have a lot of people like, oh, you should do this and do that, and and all these things. And it's when you're young, it's like, oh yeah, like maybe like, we're only making $300 a day, so maybe if we did that, you want to, But I would say it's just examining them, and over time we've just learned what things make sense and what don't. And the truth is, a lot of them don't make sense for us, and I know that we're okay with that now. It's hard when you're young to say no, but now we have a lot more confidence in it, because when we say no, we're like, we know that's not something we want to do. We're very unique, and we're okay with that. We're not like everyone else that wants to do a lot of locations and do a lot of yada yada yada. We know what we want to be, and it's small, and it's employee focused and community focused and purpose driven.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that we don't struggle with, thinking about those things. We have a lot of talented people that work for us, and so sometimes it's like, we have to think about them as well, so it's not just us, and, but trying to weigh it all out and balance it is definitely something as we get older we're kind of becoming more okay with,
It's also doesn't mean that we're not seeking to grow. I mean, we've always grown in different kinds of ways. An example would be our web store and wholesale, and we're always having conversations about maybe we could do this thing,
And those are things people don't see. I mean, other than the cafe, it's like I do a lot of wholesale consulting and training, and that's not only in Nashville, but we have a lot of accounts outside of Tennessee, and then also, the web store has grown a lot for us. We do a lot of shipping, and so that's a business that we're navigating and figuring out and growing. So although people don't physically see those things, they're definitely part of a part of.
Yeah, we've chosen to grow in organic ways that don't require a lot of capital.
Yeah.
So far.
Well, we have a couple of minutes if anyone in the audience has any questions I didn't hit on.
So every employee represents your brand, for better or worse. So what do y'all look for in your prospects, and what kind of questions do you ask?
That's a great question. I really look. It's like a cheesy thing, but we say we hire for attitude and train for skill, and so I'm looking for people that are teachable. People that are open-minded to learning. People that have a positive outlook on life. I'm kind of almost looking more at personality when I'm interviewing, because I personally spend a lot of time with the trainees at the beginning, because I do a lot of the coffee training, and I can kind of gauge where they are in that beginning stage. But for me, it's also someone that really just wants to work for CREMA, and so I'm not always looking for experience in coffee. And if someone does have experience, it's great, but I'm also looking for someone to be teachable and to, I guess just have like a positivity about them. I know it sounds cheesy, but yeah.
I think it's attitude first, and people that understand who we are. We get so many applicants that are, I'm in coffee and I want to work for you guys. I love it, and that's the whole email. I'm not kidding you. And I'm like, what? So I mean, that's kind of just a fun thing. I think we started a new process to apply, because we want to be a place that's, hopefully this isn't snobby, we'll see, but it's working so far. We want to be a place where people desire to work, and so we've put so if you want to apply to CREMA, no more emails. We ask you to politely just send in a postcard with a tear out of your favorite book or magazine, and tell us what you like about CREMA or something unique about yourself. We don't want a resume, because we just learned those things don't really matter that much. It's more about your fit and your attitude.
Miranda?
Well, first of all, it's amazing to see you two right here, right now. I think about 9 years ago, we visited about, I guess at Rimmers, when we were at 12 South, and you guys talked about doing this. And I feel like now I've learned so much from what I just heard from you. I'm validated And so I so applaud you for many of those instances where you change the flow of things, or just all the little things done to say, this is who we are. We are not about doing it for anybody else. We have the purpose here for what we do, and hopefully you'll understand it. And if you don't, then it's okay. I'm saying again that kudos to all the things that you do, because you know it's the right thing to do for your business, and not because of what people think you should do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, it means a lot.
I think it's, when we first opened, it was hard to think about making some of those decisions, but another learning that I've had over the last 2 or 3 years, I think maybe both, well, maybe I did. I used to think about this as ourselves, like we're in this, like we've got to figure this out. But now I look around and we've got, like again, the party, we've got a team of 20-some people that actually believe in it and are here because they choose to be here. And so to your point, it's, when we decided to screw the tables down for design purposes as much as cost purposes and all that thing, it was easier to make that decision with a team of people, because it wasn't just, oh, we're going to try this. It was like, we actually have an enthusiastic group of employees who believe in this mission, and at the end of the day, it's not about the tables. It's about their personal connection with the customers that come in, that drive people back. So, and the amazing avocado toast.
One more question. Yeah.
What would you guys say is the most important thing in your life when starting a coffee shop like this? Location, speed, especially when you staff.
I will say, if you want to work in coffee, you have to have a passion for that industry and for that product, because the margins are not great, and it takes a lot of education and training to create a great product. It's taken a lot of training and education, and forgot about that being there. It's taken a lot of money and time and education for myself to be part of that industry. And it takes just a lot of perseverance, because we didn't really answer the question, but we didn't start to actually turn a profit till year 5 or 6. So it is something that when
we didn't take a profit.
We didn't take a profit.
We were putting all this profit. We paid all the profits went back into loans.
Yeah, and that's why when we did bootstrap the whole thing, so that we approached it differently. But it is one of those businesses that takes many years to build, and so it is a very interesting industry to be in, for sure. But yeah, definitely just having someone that I would say, that is just really well educated in that industry, going into it, having lots of experience. Like I had 5 years of management experience and a total of 10 years of working in coffee before we opened CREMA. So I had the advantage there, and I've seen other people open coffee businesses that never worked in the industry, or worked in it a little bit but never really had much leadership role, or didn't really quite understand the nuances of just what it takes to run a business. And so I think that I learned all that stuff while being paid. So I think that for me was invaluable. So I would just say definitely experience and product and all those things kind of fall into place eventually. But
it's a really hard question, because
Yeah.
markets are idiosyncratic, and it's what might be the most important thing for one little shop may be different for someone else. So it's a very unfair, or just a very difficult question to ask, because I don't think what works for one market or business will work for another one. That said, we've been joking for 7 years or so about writing a book, because it's like everyone it seems like everyone's like, oh, you own a coffee shop, your life must be so great. Like you sit around and, chat and that kind of thing. And there's this very wrong impression of what it takes to run a business. And so our book is going to be titled, if we ever do this, it's been a joke, but we actually do have some of it written a little bit. would be 199 reasons not to open a coffee shop, and the only reason to open one, or the only reason you should. And I mean, to boil it all down and to oversimplify it, and this is exactly what she said, is just passion. Because most of those people that ask about opening or running a coffee company don't have a passion for it. They see it, they're either an investor who sees, the line of people coming in the door, and they're like, oh, I can invest in that and make a lot of money. Or oftentimes it's a barista who just has a misunderstanding of it all, or a stay-at-home mom who's wants to do. And I'm not saying anything bad about any of those kind of stereotypes, but above all else, if you don't have a passion for it, if you're not willing to sit at the counter, for 80 hours a day when you have 3 customers a day, that kind of thing, and see it through. If you don't have the passion to learn accounting, if you don't have the passion to go to Origin, if you don't have the passion to
train, hire,
all
fire,
that stuff,
HR.
it's just not going to work because it's
managing relationships.
Because it's just such a low margin industry. Even though it seems like you pay a lot for a cup of coffee, the overall margin is not that great.
Yeah.
I would go into hot dog stands. It seems like margins are ice cream. Like, you don't have to train people. It's just, our hot dogs. Margins are much higher.
Yeah, the training costs, people don't think about that, but for the level of baristas we have, they spend about 15 hours of one-on-one time with me. So just me. And then they train on the floor. So it's think about maybe what my consulting rate would be to train someone, and I take that times my 22 baristas. So I'm investing that in my staff, but then when I go out and do it for someone else, it's definitely something that, and so it's very valuable. And I don't know how to I could never explain to the staff what you guys are getting, but it's that's something that a lot of coffee companies don't do, is spend as much time and money on education with their staff. And that's where things there is turnover and quality is lower, and it's just, and that's okay for that business, but for our business, that's something we put a lot of emphasis on. So it kind of, like he said, it depends on what your business is and what your business model is and what your customer base is. We're in the higher end of specialty coffee, so our market, we realize, is different than other coffee businesses because there's many different kinds out there too. So, yeah.
I can't thank you guys enough. My goal with this series was to have as honest as possible conversations, and I feel like this was just sort of the perfect one to kind of round out the series. So
Thank you, Lily.
Thanks,
for
Lily.
being here, and
Thank you guys.
thanks to everyone who's come to the Sippets. Usually I say next month we'll have blah blah blah, but I'm like, next month I'm gonna be all alone. So anyway, you guys have a happy Christmas and New Year, and
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And if you want to visit them, they're across the street.
Yes, we are across the street.